Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris alongside Rodney Orr. Rodney, good to see you. Good to see you, Stu. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot to talk about tonight. Gary will be back next week, so right now you got to deal with us, and we got some takes to do. So thank you once again to Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports for sponsoring this. They're a great sponsor. Alabama's win over New Mexico State was costly, but Rodney, I feel that a lot of people are focusing on that negative, the costly stuff, and we will too, but let's not forget about the positives. Some great play by Bryce Young, becoming the first quarterback in Alabama history to throw for 5 touchdowns in a single half. I don't care who it's against. That's a big-time show and a big-time performance. Also, 247 yards rushing. That following a game against LSU, they had a net 6 yards. I don't think we ever have to hear about that stat again. I'm very happy about that. Jamison Williams continues to play at a big-time level. So those are the positives. Never say that we only focus on the negative. It's too easy to do that. These are the positives.
These are the positives. And, again, you mentioned some of the injuries. Those are the negatives. But
yeah,
listen.
That's what we're getting into.
And we talked about this last week, too, Stu. I want to point this out. I said I thought this was going to be a big game for the reason of that Alabama needed to come out, play a clean football game, play to the standard that Nick Saban always talks about. Even though it's New Mexico State, I think they did that.
Absolutely. Let's get into some of those. The negatives for Alabama when it comes to their performance, you got the injuries. You got the 1-2 JoJo Earl on a punt return. That one came at the end of the first quarter. And then that's Roydell Williams' injury. An injured ankle is going to require surgery. He had stepped up so big after Jace McClellan went down with an injury, and now we got to find someone to step in for him because that is the 3rd scholarship running back that Alabama has lost to injury this season. JoJo Earl, that's the injury for him on that punt return right there. Slade Bolden likely going to step in for that. But, Rodney, the question to you is, who should we expect to see? And I'll ask you that in 1 second. First, we're going to hear from Brian Robinson on having to be next man up mentality in that locker room, especially at the running back position.
Well, it's always tough seeing one of your guys go down, especially a hard worker like Roydell is. It's tough to see him go down, but it's also an exciting opportunity for D-Moy and Christian, get an opportunity, to get in and carry the ball a little bit, after have a position change, in the middle of the season. And, I know that's not a hard, that's not an easy task, to come into the running back room, but, those guys kept their head up, they trusted it, and I was just so happy to see them guys get an opportunity today.
And that's kind of what Nick Saban called it yesterday at his press conference. Somebody asked him about Trey Sanders. Next man up mentality, what about Trey Sanders? And Coach Saban said this is a tremendous opportunity for him.
Yeah, no question about it. You look at Trey Sanders, you talk about injuries. He had that serious automobile accident just a year ago. I really thought at that time he was starting to come into his own. As a guy coming off the bench, maybe the 3rd back last year. You remember he had the great game against Mississippi State, 12 carries, 82 yards in that game. Then he had the car accident. Some people thought he would never play again. He's made a tremendous recovery. I thought when he's had the opportunities this year to run the ball, I thought Trey's looked really, really good. So, I feel confident with him there in that position. Obviously, Brian Robinson, and I know that Brian mentioned also DeMoy Kennedy filled in. He got some carries in the game, Christian Leary. So those are some other guys, and Coach Saban did mention they may work another player there in that position in the event of an emergency.
And that's something else that DeMoy Kennedy showed a lot. But also you mentioned Christian Leary, who we thought had been working with the receivers, but he might be dynamic enough to kind of switch roles. The impact freshmen who we're used to seeing at this point in the season, we have some, but there's a lot of guys who have an opportunity maybe to step in now for these final 2 games and possibly, hopefully, even more after that.
Well, I think when you look at Christian Leary, for example, in high school, he did a lot of those things like as a runner. He lined up as a wildcat running back. He ran on reverses. He did things as, any way they could get the ball into his hands. Obviously, he came here as a slot receiver. He's got a lot of ability, tremendous speed. Now, he's a 10-5 100-meter sprinter. And so he's a guy that brings that. And there's Trey Sanders. I think he's got great vision when he runs with the football. Really like Trey here. You see him there in that Miami game when he got his touchdown, that opener. So, again, it's a tough situation. We've seen it happen before. There's not a Derrick Henry like there was in 2015 when Kenyon Drake went down. Alabama was down to basically Derrick Henry, and he carried the load. But, hopefully they can get through the rest of this regular season and, then hopefully moving forward, that some of these guys can develop.
When I was talking about the impact freshman, I was trying to think of Jaquinski McKinstry. That's the big one that I was thinking about, that he's playing great. There's a lot of freshmen who are very capable. Everybody who comes in here has that, but it's the opportunity. It's being in the right place at the right time, unfortunately for Roydell Williams, but it is an opportunity for somebody else.
It is an opportunity. And, two, you talk about the freshmen stepping up. How about Dallas Turner, the outside linebacker?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You look
Those
at
types
really,
of guys.
And you think about the job Sal Sinceri's done with the outside linebackers. He loses an All-American player, Chris Allen, in the opener. Then all of a sudden you've got an inexperienced player, Trey Sanders. He starts budding into a star. He goes down, and now within a few weeks, Dallas Turner looks like a potential star.
That's right. Next up this week, Arkansas. The Razorbacks are ranked 21st and have won 3 straight games, 7-3 on the year, bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. Arkansas quarterback KJ Jefferson has done a solid job, 60% completion percentage. Got a great dynamic player, Treylon Burks, to be thrown to on the outside. Alabama, though, coming in nearly a 3-touchdown favorite, 20.5-point favorite for this game coming up. Rodney, Coach Saban talked about the defense being inconsistent. Treylon Burks is somebody who's going to take advantage of that if you're not on your P's and Q's, if you will. That's an old adage.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yes, that's right.
But no, Treylon Burks is one of the outstanding receivers in the country. No question about that. I know his statistics. He's got good statistics. Maybe they're not up there where some of the other guys are. 51 catches, over 700 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. KJ Jefferson has done a fantastic job. You mentioned, he's got 17 touchdown passes. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. And look, he's a really big physical guy. He's hard to get on the ground. He's going to be a really good runner. He's got over 450 yards rushing. But think about this. They've got 4 guys who have over 450 yards rushing. So they balance their running attack out with Traylon Smith as one of their he's their leading rusher with over 500. But so there you see KJ Jefferson, really a big physical player who, again, has done a nice job in the passing game.
Well, now it is time for Coach Talk. Alabama can clinch the SEC West title with a win on Saturday, but get this, the Arkansas Razorbacks are still alive mathematically in the West race as well. The Razorbacks need help beyond this week, but first things first, they need to win at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and Arkansas head coach Sam Pittman thinks his team believes it can win.
Well, we have a chance. I mean, the number one thing, and I know it might be considered coach speak or whatever, the number one thing you have to do to go beat a team is believe you can do it. I'll go back to look at my first year here in 2013, and we got beat 50-0, I think, or something like that by Alabama, and then the next year we got beat by a point. Now, things happen and different things during the game, like all that. But the number one difference to me was we had a team full of guys that believed that they could win.
One key thing he left off that game in 2014, the 1-point game, was in Fayetteville.
It was.
It was not here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Not that this is not going to be a huge challenge, because Arkansas is a team on the rise.
And Alabama, that team, if you remember, had difficulties on the road. They lost to Ole Miss that year on the road. Blake Sims played a little better here at Bryant-Denny, but, that's been 7 years ago. And you look at this game here. I think Sam Pittman's done an incredible job turning that program around. They're 7-3. They lost 3 in a row. Now they've won 3 in a row, so they're kind of on a roll.
That's right. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama soccer did something last week that they have never done before. We're going to tell you what next. And Alabama basketball got their season started with 2 games last week. Got another one tonight. We're going to get into the basketball season. And coming up, also with your phone calls, emails, and tweets, you see the information right there for it. Contact us. Reach out to Tider Insider TV right now. Give us a call. Send us an email. Contact us on social media. We will be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. Welcome back to TITV, sponsored by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. So Gary is at home watching, and he will be back in this seat next week. Rodney, I'm very happy to be right here next to you, although we are missing a great basketball game. That's the thing. Yeah. We're missing the Alabama basketball, who's in action right now against South Alabama. Not have 6'6" sophomore forward Juwan Gary. He's doubtful to play against South Alabama, but it isn't all bad. The good news, he's not going to be out very long. He did get an injury against South Dakota State, but is listed day-to-day. That's the positive. Alabama basketball is all positive. Everything that they have shown so far against Louisiana Tech and South Dakota State has been on the level of what we expected. Our expectations were pretty good coming into this season. 2-0, led by Jaden Shackelford, Javon Quinterly, and Keon Ellis. 3 of them alone combined for 108 points, 43 rebounds, and 18 assists. That is quite a trio. It's a power trio, if you will, from a band analogy. Rodney, just from what we've seen so far, this team came in with huge expectations. They came in with that preseason ranking. They maybe are even better now that we've actually seen them on the court. It's a very promising thing that they can live up to expectations.
It's exhilarating watching them play. I mean, very exciting brand of basketball that they play, very athletic. I mean, he's got a roster that is loaded with potential. And, again, just very exciting to watch, an exciting, exhilarating brand of basketball.
Especially Keon Ellis. Keon Ellis, maybe not a lot of people were talking about him, but that changed very quickly. After one game, Keon Ellis is showing he belongs out there and belongs in that same realm as Javon Quinterly, as some of those other ones that we had those high expectations for. J.D. Davidson, huge freshman coming in, just as good as advertised. Very exciting knowing that this is just the beginning. Alabama women's basketball got their season started last week with games against Charleston Southern and Tulane. They got a win and then a loss to Tulane, but they will be back tomorrow, hosting tomorrow night against Southern Miss, then a game against Duke. That's going to be the real one to maybe gauge where this team is and how good and competitive they can be early on. One of those tape measure barometer games to kind of figure out how that is. Once again, the women play Southern Miss tomorrow night at Coleman Coliseum. The soccer team is making a huge stand. They got a big win at Clemson, moving on to the second round of the regional in the NCAA tournament. The first time ever for Coach Wes Hart and his team. They are back in action coming up later this week, and it is just amazing to see. It's great to see the girls coming together. They were kind of up and down throughout the season, but playing their best in the postseason, which is what this is all about. Once again, the women soccer plays in the second round of the NCAA tournament later this week against BYU. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, which former Alabama stars shine the brightest in Week 10 of the NFL season? That's coming up. Plus, we've got your phone calls, emails, and tweets. That is coming up, so call right now. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV. Go ahead, give us a call, send us an email, contact us on social media. We'll be right back. Take a look at this. Jalen Hurts, the former Alabama quarterback, throwing to Devontae Smith, the former Alabama receiver, who makes a great catch in front of Patrick Surtain, the former Alabama cornerback. That is what the NFL is these days. Alabama on all sides. Great defense by Surtain, but a better catch by Devontae Smith. How about Mark Ingram? Great move by him. 46 yards doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough to become the all-time leading rusher in franchise history for the New Orleans Saints. Great job in a loss. New Orleans falls to the Tennessee Titans. We now move on to the phone lines. John from Bessemer, number one up, wants to talk about the Alabama defense. John, how are you?
Hey, man, what's going on? I know we got football players hurt. Our defense is no good. I don't think we're going to make it to Atlanta, man, because we got to play Arkansas, we got to play Auburn, the Iron Bowls next week. So it's going to take a big miracle if we do. Later, man.
Thanks, John. That is, I think that's reflective of a lot of Alabama fans right now. That they don't have a lot of positive because they don't see it week in and week out. And that's one thing that Coach Saban talked about. There is too much inconsistency, but that consistency did show up against LSU.
It did, but, you know, again, I think when you look at the last 7 minutes of the LSU game, the way the defense stood up, they held LSU 3 times when they had an opportunity to fold. Look, that could have been the turning point of this defense. And I say turning point. Again, it's not that they played poorly all season. It's the inconsistencies. I thought they played well for the most part against New Mexico State. They had a few problems early. Once they adjusted, they were fine. You know, look, John, right now, statistically, this is a top 5 defense in the country. You know, everybody might look at Georgia and kind of judge it that way, the way they've been dominating. I think Alabama's played better competition than Georgia has, for one thing. But look, right now, I would say Georgia probably has the premier defense in the country, and that's the one that everyone's going to judge other defenses by.
Plus, you've seen these guys perform in the situation that they're trying to get to. You've seen examples of that, so that's a positive. That's something.
And I think, too, you know, Alabama has a young offense. They're developing a lot of these players that didn't have experience coming into the season. They replaced a lot. I mean, the fact that this team is now 9-1, I think they're in a great position. You know, I'm not quite as negative as John, but, you know, I think Alabama has a great chance, John, to make it to Atlanta.
We have more TITV, more phone calls coming up. Call in right now. Emails and tweets plus social media. More Tider Insider after this. Welcome back to Tider Insider Television. We go straight back to the phone line. CB in Tuscaloosa, you're up. Wants to talk about the backup quarterback. CB, how are you?
Fine. How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen? Hey, Rodney, you think that, of course, we don't want nothing to happen to no quarterback or no player and nothing else, no injury, but if our quarterback had a cold, a flu, stumped his toe, you think Tyson would be ready to play? When he puts him in there a little but jerks him right out, or what do you think about the backup quarterbacks, both of them?
Well, I think Paul Tyson's made a lot of improvement. I really do. He's had some opportunity. I thought he looked better in this game than he's looked maybe in the previous opportunities he's had, but every time I thought he's looked better. He's shown improvement. Yeah, I think he would be ready. Now, again, it's a difficult situation to step into if you're talking about the upcoming games. I mean, it's certainly for a backup quarterback doesn't have a lot of experience. But Jalen Milroe's done a nice job when he's got an opportunity to get in the games. And listen, Jalen Milroe, he's a guy that athletically, I mean, he's off the charts. Again, it's just a matter of development with him, refining himself as a passer. But when you talk about athletic ability, he's got it in loads.
Absolutely. Well, I think we have time for a quick Twitter. Here's the question. Do you think Alabama's offense is defined by the deep pass or explosive play downfield? That's from Goal Line Stand. Thank you very much, Goal Line Stand. I think that they're enough to do whatever it needs. I've seen Bryce Young scramble more in the last few games. I think Jamison Williams, no matter what you do, that's an explosive play. So if he can stretch the field, you got to use that.
Yeah, I think certainly too. But look, you compare it to last year, I think they made a lot more explosive plays, at least by my memory. I recall them making more explosive plays. They're working on making more explosive plays with this offense. I think Bryce Young is doing a better job now throwing the ball down the field. It's a matter of timing. You've got new receivers. He hasn't worked with these guys. It's a new experience for all of them. So I think they're doing a really good job in that regard in terms of making improvement. And I think you mentioned it, the balance that they've had. They didn't have it against LSU, but they got it, back last week, and that's what they want to continue to try to do.
All right. I think we have another phone call. John? John,
yes,
how are you?
Just fine. How are you?
Good.
I want to talk about the Alabama defense and offense about Georgia. I watched Georgia play. I think Alabama offense could score on Georgia defense, and I think our defense can hold Georgia.
I think that is something that I would really be excited to see, John. It isn't something that I don't think one or the other. It's just it's a matchup we've talked so much about. We have been so much into this game coming up in the SEC Championship, this possible showdown, that it's enough talk. I'm excited if it does play out to see it happen?
Yeah, I think, again, you've got to beat Arkansas. That's a really quality team. Again, they're 7-3. They went to Baton Rouge last week and won a really tough game. So they're not coming here intimidated. Sam Pittman talked about confidence. They've got the confidence. So you've got to obviously get past that game, and then, of course, you go down to the Plains, and that's always a difficult place to play. But if you speculate, you want to look forward to that game against Georgia, I really think that the Alabama defense might be the key to that game. If they can slow down Georgia's run, maybe force the game more into the quarterback's hands, with Alabama's developing pass rush on the outside, with Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, I think they could really cause some problems.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. And I cannot wait for the predictions. That's coming up next. It is game week, so we're going to get into that coming up and check out this beautiful Tuscaloosa. We might get one of those beauty shots. If not, take my word for it. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. More Tighter Insider after this. Welcome back to TITV. It's game week. Arkansas, 2:30 this Saturday on CBS. Rodney, don't worry. I have Gary's pick. So we'll get to that in a second. But as always, start us off.
Well, I don't know if you knew this, Stu, but Arkansas was the only team in the country, or only team on Alabama's schedule last year, that held Mac Jones without a touchdown pass. This is a really good quality team that Arkansas is bringing into Bryant-Denny Stadium. Obviously, we talked about the offense. We talked about their defense. They do a fantastic job with Barry Odom. But you know what? I think Alabama gets it done 31-17.
All right. I'm not going to even do the suspense buildup. Gary feels the same way. Here is Gary's pick coming up. It's going to be a 34-10.
Wow.
34-10. So a little bit different. Last week you guys were exactly the same. But I think a lot the same. It is at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It is Alabama. It is a motivated team knowing that they have a chance to wrap up the SEC West. Alabama, 34-10. Seal it up. That is what Gary Harris is offering for you in the predictions pick. Thank you so much for tuning in to Tighter Insider, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. I am Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. Here's Rodney Orr. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30, after the news at 10, and online at WVUA23.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night.